Thank you for putting this together. You've got a great crowd of people here together, staff, elected people, people who care about the country. And as you note, the language that you raised is controversial. What is liberal racism? Well, for me, it starts with three multis: multiculturalism, multigenderism, and multilateralism. Three ideas that claim to expand freedom, but each one strips something essential away. Multiculturalism denies individual dignity. Multigenderism denies biological reality. And multilateralism denies the nation state itself. So in this multiverse, if you will, of narcissists and nihilists, truth disappears and only ideology remains. So let's start with multiculturalism and the denial of individual dignity. We were told multiculturalism celebrates differences, but what it actually produces is managed identity. People are sorted into categories and their stories become political tools. 5 years ago, this very month, in the Toronto Star of all places, Jamil Javani, Kaveh Shahruz, and I wrote that true diversity means the freedom to think for yourself. Back then, it felt obvious, don't you think? Today, it feels outright rebellious. Let me share some of what Jamil and I wrote 5 years ago. In 2016, when delivering Howard University's commencement address, President Obama reminded students, "There's no one way to be black. Take it from somebody who's seen both sides of the debate about whether I'm black enough. There's no straitjacket, there's no constraints, there's no litmus test for authenticity." Since then, a tidal shift has taken place across Western democracies, with growing hostility towards members of minority communities espousing heterodox or alternative viewpoints. Obama's message, once uncontroversially mainstream, is at odds with the current rhetoric of many progressives. U.S. Congresswoman and proud member of the Squad, remember them, Ayanna Pressley, famously said that Democrats do not need any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice, or any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. Representative Presley's phrasing may have indeed been odd, but her point was clear. Historically marginalized people should only be included when they say what she wants to hear. Tragically, this view is not limited to the political fringe. President-elect Joe Biden uttered in an interview, "You ain't black if you don't vote for him." This suggests that progressive and liberal advocates of diversity and inclusion may not grasp what a truly diverse society entails. If people of color were fairly represented, they'd also join non-progressive groups, teaching varied theories in universities, donating to diverse charities, consuming different media, and voting for all kinds of parties. That's a true mark of a thriving democracy, don't you think? Yet, far too many supposed champions of diversity and inclusion insist that people of color are only welcome if we become caricatures of what progressives and liberals think of us. Their aspiration, and this is a term Jamil contributed specifically then, their aspiration is racially subversive, and then I contributed, a borderless world of multicolored progressives and liberals worshiping at the high altar of ideological orthodoxy under a hierarchy of grievances they cannot prioritize. 5 years ago. Today, pluralism has become a guise for normative moral relativism, where multiculturalism now normalizes even terrorism, where liberal racism masquerades as empathy for horrific violence. So let me turn now to the next grievance that their proponents cannot prioritize: multigenderism and the denial of reality. The same pattern is applied to gender. In 2016, the New York City Commission on Human Rights recommended 31 genders, 31 categories treated as fact. Women today are told that their womanhood is just a feeling, and their sports, privacy, and safety are treated as somehow negotiable. When women object, they are shamed. This is not progress. It undermines women's achievements and replaces biology with political fashion. Women deserve better than an ideology that cannot define the word woman. And men, young men, for a generation now have been told to atone for the trespasses of their forefathers. For a generation, young men have been emasculated of their heroes, of strong male mentors like William Wilberforce, who championed universal suffrage, or those who fought fascism at Vimy Ridge. They've been told that their gender is the oppressor, that their lives are to be dedicated to atonement for sins they did not commit, their labor is not important, their status is not as equal, but as subservient. The writing was on the wall in the 2006 book that Harvard professor Harvey Mansfield wrote called Manliness. He argued that manliness is an unchanging, natural human quality characterized by assertiveness and the willingness to take risks, which modern society has problematically tried to suppress or even ignore. 3 takeaways from the book. First, manliness is an enduring, essential quality, not a social construct. Mansfield argues that the modern gender-neutral society perspective, that manliness is merely a transient social construct. He describes an essence to manliness that while its social expression changes across cultures and history, from Achilles to the cowboy, that remains an indelible part of human nature. He believes that society cannot simply do away with it, and ignoring it leads to problems. Second takeaway, the manly man involves taking responsibility and asserting authority. And it can manifest in 2 ways, a contempt for those who are dependent, or a noble protective instinct toward family, community, or country. This protective responsibility is core, driving individuals to step up and provide leadership or defend principles when others might hesitate. And third, the third takeaway, modern society suffers from, quote, unemployed manliness. Mansfield suggests that rational control and gender-neutral ideologies tend to discount the value of manliness, leading to its unemployed state. Suppressed, it reappears frustrated, destructive outlets, gang violence, extreme sports, or absent fatherhood. He advocates for society to channel manliness into honest and honorable employment, like statesmanship or civic engagement, rather than its suppression. So now to the third multi in the multiverse of narcissists and nihilism, multilateralism and the denial of nationhood. These same ideologies of liberal racism domestically shapes the view of the world itself. Real cooperation between nations is replaced with post-national theories of worshiping at the altar of something they call multilateralism. A generation now worships the United Nations. But let me turn to somebody that might be surprising to you, Dr. Janice Stein, a dear friend and wonderful friend, and founder of the Munk School of Global Affairs at the University of Toronto. On a podcast we did together recently with Steve Bacon, she decried this idea. Bewildered, she described multilateralism as a nonsense ideology centered around a convention center with nice hotels and nice restaurants. So let me follow her lead. In multilateralism, patriotism is treated as outdated, borders are treated as suspicious, and national identity is treated as apologies. It is critical to the liberal narrative that history be rewritten to create guilt and grievance, often starting at the middle and rarely at the beginning. Education becomes about indoctrination of post-national, postmodern theologies, not sanctuaries of critical thinking. The concept of the citizen is subordinated to immigration as a political project. Citizens build nations and states, defined by borders, laws, and moral values. Weak laws have allowed violent offenders to bring foreign conflicts onto our streets, burning flags, barricading neighborhoods, attacking religious sanctuaries, persecuting communities. In the name of moral equivalencies of multilateralism and multiculturalism, the modern left has taken the instinct of tolerance and weaponized it. They've turned tolerance into a shield that protects extremists at home and abroad from actual accountability. The danger is not nations themselves. It's liberal racism pushing free countries to discard their values, their history, and their own people. With the weakened borders multilateralism has now produced, violent ideologues exploit our immigration system, criminal networks exploit our financial systems, and radicals push ideas that reject our laws and our values. So when Canadians raise real concerns, they are mocked, dismissed, or called intolerant. When communities warn about radicalization, they are silenced. And when victims speak, they are attacked. So, ending liberal racism. Modern liberal diversity is not diversity. It is control. Diverse faces, uniform opinions. Representation matters until you think independently. Inclusion matters until you include yourself somewhere unsanctioned. Humans, as we all know, are complex beings. Identity is indeed subjective. Human dignity, however, is objective. Racism masquerades as empathy. The media rarely reflects our view. Reporters covering race and identity at home and abroad often repeat stories portraying minorities as monolithic victims, as if reading from the same script. As leaders confront this disruptive age, which has disproportionately impacted our cultural and religious communities, our young women and men, our sense of country and patriotism, a multitude of ideas must be on the table. Simplistic narratives about group identities and what we believe in simply won't develop the best plan. A stymied debate subjected to liberal racism will only lead to worse decisions. Liberal racism is deeper than prejudice. Liberal racism is moral relativism. It's neo-Marxism, replacing economic class warfare with social and racial oppression. For the world's totalitarians, conformity is the object of their oppression, and we won't have any of it. Moral relativism denies the human spirit. It denies freedom. It denies country. Canada is not some post-national project. We are a country built on a promise that is the inheritance of both the British Magna Carta and the French Declaration of the Rights of Man, of human dignity, of merit, of truth, of the indelible, irreducible, indestructible idea of freedom. Confronting liberal racism is a first step to restoring that foundation, to restoring the promise, and Jamil Aman, to restoring the North. Thank you very much for having me.